Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the Ashen Hall playing as the Wood Elves against the forces of the Greenskins. And going into this game we had a bit of a discussion with my opponent back and forth. I picked Wood Elves immediately and he didn't want to counterpick me, so he picked Greenskins. But the problem is that Greenskins, the kind of usual go-to build to counteract Greenskins with Wood Elves is to kind of kite and poke away at them and snipe away at them a whole bunch. Make sure they can't get their wall off too soon, and then eventually close the distance and kind of wipe out whatever's left. But I really didn't want to do a kite build. I'm not the biggest fan of kite builds personally. I know it can be frustrating both for your opponent as well as for yourself. It just gets tedious and annoying. So I decided to go with something a little more direct. Now certainly you can't go toe to toe with Greenskins, but I figured, Hawk Riders, they could swing the tide here a little bit. So you're going to see those again. I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of them, but we're going to see them again. So for my lord, I brought Glady. She's mounted on a dragon. She's got Prey of Anathrema as well as Arrow of Kurnus, figuring that if I need to poke down enemy lords or heroes, this will give me the opportunity to try to deny the wall or force them off, that sort of stuff. But also the Fear Terrors and AP is just so good against Greenskins. We then have a Spellslinger of Life who only has Earthblood as well as Life Bloom and the Power Stone. On ground, I actually brought the Waystalker, so this is another hero you don't see very often. I completely stripped him down here. He's on foot, 700 gold. Now, one of the cool things about him, though, is that he's got homing arrows. And he's like almost an ideal sniper for sniping heroes. If your opponent has Wurtzag, if your opponent has, even to an extent, Azag, and definitely for like Goblin Shamans, this guy will do a great job, because he's got almost 300 damage a shot. They've got very little armor. He's very accurate. He's almost every shot, unless there's trees in the way, he's going to hit. So I figured, we might get some value here. Now for the rest of the army, front line, 3 Dryads as well as 2 Eternal Guard, who are supposed to be out on the flanks, but due to the way that I wanted to hide my army in the woods, I was worried about my opponent having artillery. It's a little offset here, but you can see it isn't exactly a perfect line. But 2 Eternal Guard on the flanks, there's an anchor, Dryads to beat up infantry in the middle. Up in the sky, 3 Hawk Riders, so I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of these guys, but obviously with the AP, the very solid weapon strength, and the stats, and my idea was that I can kind of pick apart my opponent's army, one area at a time, and avoid a sort of protracted engagement or avoid situation where he just gets a full-on charge with Wah, wipes out my whole army essentially in a single sweep. In the back we do have 2 doubled up Wild Riders. These guys also cause fear. They're an amazing unit for mopping up cheap infantry. And if your opponent goes very heavy on goblins, this is, in my opinion, a great way to counter them, because Wild Riders will mulch goblins. They'll eat them for dinner. They're okay against they're not bad against stuff like Boar Boys and the lighter cav that goblins can bring. Though certainly with Wah, things can shift very wildly. Now for my opponent, he went with a very heavy goblin build. He's got Forest Goblin Spider Riders over here, and then he's got a huge Vanguard stock. Now I knew there's some sneaky shenanigans going on, because I saw the enemy troop count at 1414. But he's got a mix of Night Goblins, he's got the Warlord's Boys, he's got the 8-peak Loonies, so the full kit over here, Vanguarded, alongside Night Goblin Shaman, who does have Itchy Nuisance as well as the Gorkle Fix-It, which is a pretty cool ability that you don't see used very often, but the slow and vigor debuff can be huge. He also does have Sneaky Stealin' to deny my power recharge, and the Wand of Jet. 2 units of Nasty Skulkers protecting the backline. You don't necessarily need the AP against Wood Elves. It helps a little bit against Treekin, but one of the cool things about these guys is the AoE snare with their smoke bomb. So I figured, or my opponent probably figured that would be really useful. And honestly, it is very useful against things like Wild Riders, against things like Dragons and the Hawk Riders. If you snare them, they're done. The rest of the arrows over there, another Gabo Shaman over here, same kit as the first one. More spiders, even more spiders, and then one very bigly spider, and it's the Ragnarok Queen here, coming in with her Spider Hatchling summon. Once again, not bad, because we need to disrupt those Wood Elf backlines. Finally, we do have a Night Goblin War Boss here on foot to prevent my sniping, because obviously that's kind of what I intended, and a lot of Wood Elves will try that. But he's got his push to full harness, he's got Tormentor's Sword, he's got Get Back Here, Wah, and the Spite of the Bad Moon, which literally gives him 100% shield block. Finally, here in the woods, we do have doubled up Goblin Archers, backed up by the Broken Tusk Mob, so a pretty potent force, if I do say so myself. Broken Tusk Mob, very powerful against Wood Elves, in my opinion, as long as you can prevent them from getting shot to death by, say, Way Watchers. Now over here, my opponent is pushing forward with his Forest Goblin Spider Riders, and immediately I start seeing what I kind of expected with my opponent is that he kind of, hid some Forest Goblin Spider Riders in the corner. I figured there might be something over here as well, somewhere that I'm not seeing, and that probably most of his army is up here in the front, with most of his infantry front-loaded there, screening the Ragnarok. But my opponent had this cool flank. And so suddenly I'm seeing all these goblins, and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be bad. But rather than sort of letting myself get bogged down, we're actually going to dive in here against the Night Goblins, trying to get some quick early picks on my opponent, trying to take some of his troops offline. You can see in we go, and immediately it's going to be a Fear and Terror out, because the Hawk Riders get that rear charge. It's like minus 25 penalty. The Night Goblins don't have immune to psychology. There's some damage, and immediately, boom, it's game over for these poor Night Goblins. They immediately are out. Now, my opponent does pop his Wah, hoping to kind of close the gap here very quickly, hoping to do some damage. Perhaps a little premature. You can see the Wild Riders are going to dive out of the woods and start beating on these Forest Goblin Spider Riders before they get the chance to do anything. And here in the pits, we are going to force off those Night Goblins almost immediately with a very, very hasty Fear and Terror out. In the meantime, you can see those guys are just fleeing for dear life over there. We are going to be able to sort of extricate some of our troops. You can see a smoke bomb did go down. My opponent was very quick on his feet and just denying me that escape. I'm down to 9 speed here between the poison and I'm pretty sure this poison coming in and all those debuffs. We're just not able to sneak out, and the lady actually jumps in further, which is just not good. But our Hawk Riders do dive in over here on the Rusty Airs. They do a little bit of damage, but are then promptly forced to run away. Because if there's one thing you don't want happening with your Hawk Riders, it's getting trapped in a protracted engagement with units like Forest Goblin Spider Riders. Now, taking an overarching look, you can see now I'm in full panic mode. I'm pulling my Wild Riders over, I'm pulling my infantry over. My Waste Stalker is actually going to start chipping away at some of these Night Goblin Shamans. He's still trying to get into position. I don't know what he's actually been shooting at. He's kind of wasted some ammo there. But this pit fight here is going full tilt. Unfortunately, the Forest Goblin Spider Riders, they can keep your troops on the ground. And that's really something that's very bad for Wood Elves. You don't want your things like a Hawk Rider, much less your Lady, getting trapped on the ground for protracted amounts of time. And so we're going to have to bunker bust her out of here. You can see she's getting surrounded. She's losing tons of HP. And I realize I'm not going to be able to stay alive if I don't do something. But these Spider Riders are going to wreck me. So the Wild Riders diving in, taking one for the team, just trying to bunker bust, get these nasty Skulkers off the field. The Forest Goblin Spider Riders here getting charged in the rear, and we're actually able to force a bit of a chain route. That is one problem, of course, with Goblins, is that their leadership is basically nil. And we're going to be able to force these Forest Goblin Spider Riders completely away, chasing them off the edge of the map over there. And actually, yeah, there do we chase them off the map? I'm pretty sure we did. But in the meantime, the Glady is actually able to sneak away. You can see our Spellslinger of Life diving in over here on this guy. And over here, our Wild Riders, though, completely dumpstered. They get jumped on by the Ragnarok Queen. They get jumped on by the Spider Riders. And unfortunately, that's going to be game for them. The Wild Riders just... they sacrificed themselves for the greater good, because the Glady there would have died, and I really needed her to stay alive. So that was a huge win for me, despite being an unfortunate loss. Now, as a Waste Stalker, you're chipping away. He's on 13 kills, which isn't amazing, but he's chipping away at my opponent's Lord. He's been chipping away sometimes at the Night Goblin Shaman. He's doing some work. In the meantime, here in the pits, my opponent is kind of getting caught out. We're catching some units with Dryads and with Eternal Guard, kind of mulching over these troops, while his main elite forces are stuck on a bad flank. And on the periphery, he does have the Broken Tusk Mob, which tried to catch my Wild Riders, but I think lost track of them due to the woods. And so they're now coming back, trying to save this pocket with his Lord. The Spellslinger of Life gets terrorized out of there by the Ragnarok Spider. And the Hawk Riders and the Glady are now able to sort of clear out. We're able to start mulching this infantry, but unfortunately my opponent does have these Goblin Archers. They're doing some chip damage on the Waste Stalker. The Waste Stalker has been doing some good work, just sniping away at units like this Night Goblin Shaman, sniping away at units like my opponent's Lord, doing a little bit of work here and there. And I think actually kind of getting some value. Now over here, the Dryads are going to start pushing in. We're going to try to zone out all these annoying troops. And one of the things we haven't been doing all that well, but we are going to start doing, is clearing up the mobs at the flanks, because I was able to chain around several units, and that was a huge win for me. But right now, the balance of power is about dead even. My opponent's probably going to get a new Wah soon, and if I don't get rid of all these peripheral troops, I'm going to be in deep trouble. So I need to get rid of them. And so you can see, unfortunately, over here, I'm letting my Glady just get beamed in the face, which is really bad. Now, fortunately, one of the cool things about the Glady is that she's got 45% missile resist, just by against anything with physical damage. So all the Greenskin missiles, they're doing 45% less damage. With her armor, it's probably about 50% of their damage is being blocked. So that's pretty nice about the Glady. Over here, though, my opponent is using his buffs, his debuffs, using Itchy Nuisance constantly. But fortunately, Dryads, immune to psychology, Eternal Guard, very high leadership, so they're going to hold in here. It's not ideal for them, but they're going to hold, and they're going to keep fighting, fighting the good fight. Now over here, the Waste Stalker is chipping away at this Shaman, and you can see he's breaking there at 495 HP. This guy's just getting so much value. This might not seem like much, but if I'm able to get these casters off the field, that is a big win for me. In the meantime, over here, we are going to start picking off these peripheral troops that are still trying to make their way back. We've managed to force off some of those archers over there with our Hawk Riders, and their Eternal Guards coming back from a chase. And while my opponent is going to win this pocket over here pretty decisively, you can see the Spider just towering over the Dryads. They don't stand a chance. The Night Goblin is diving back in. The AP Loonies anchoring things, and we don't really have anything to counter them. I don't know why it always says Night Goblins for AP Loonies. They're like the one regiment renowned that's bugged like this. But well, my opponent will be able to break this pocket eventually. It's not going to be quick. And we're going to be able to wipe up these Night Goblins. You can see these Wild Riders, 319 kills. These guys are just on a monstrous rampage. 2 chevrons. They've only lost 5 models. This is something you will rarely even see in campaign. And over here, we're able to catch out, because these boar boys were trying to hunt down my Waystalker because he was doing all that damage to those casters. We're actually able to snare these Broken Tusk Mob and just wipe them out. They get completely pounded, and they do have encouraged. They've got some very high leadership, but they're going to get mobbed by Hawk Riders. They're going to get knocked on by the Glady, and immediately they're in full rout. So once again, forcing that retreat. 15 miles left. Over here, the Dryad's still trying to catch the Gobos, which isn't happening because Dryads have 36 speed, but they're exhausted. The Goblins are only winded, so they're not tired enough to just get caught. So we're not going to be able to catch them. But we are able to force this Broken Tusk Mob off. You can see they are routing. We're sniping off models, and we're going to kill them entirely. And over here, the Eternal Guard, the one healthy unit of Eternal Guard is going to take one for the team. They're going to dive in here, and they're going to bog down this mob. And at this point, the balance of power is starting to shift pretty heavily in my favor. I'm taking the Hawk Squad and the Dryads and trying to set up a bit of a concave to do a bit of a final push. My Waystalker here in position finally ran out of ammo, but he did kill the second Goblin Shaman. The first one has actually completely shattered. So the Waystalker's already essentially paid his dues. Even if those Shamans are completely stripped down and had like nothing on them, he's already done his job just by getting rid of those 2. And he's done other stuff. He's obviously got 29 kills. So my Archer Fire, beating up on my Hawk Riders once again makes me cry a little bit, but honestly isn't going to do too much. Hawk Riders are tough to hit. And the Glady's coming back, and she's going to start chipping away once more. This is a pretty lengthy match. You can see the Eternal Guard here, they're actually getting beaten down. The Goblin War Boss and the Arachnarch Queen were parked on top of their own Night Goblins. They actually tear through Eternal Guard pretty efficiently. This was a full HP unit of Eternal Guard with 70, I think it was 70 models or 72 models or something going into this, and almost full HP, and they lost the vast majority of that very, very quickly. But now my opponent is making a bit of a Helm's Deep formation here. He knows he can't chase me, and honestly, I had no intention of like wasting time sniping away at him or doing any sort of that stuff. So we're going to dive in here. He does pop his wall, which is definitely a smart thing to do, but I'm going for that encirclement and then the rear charge. So you can see the Glady dives in. She's going to take a bit of pounding. In come the Hawk Riders, though. In comes the Spellslinger of Life. We're going to be able to mop up these peripheral troops, get rid of the Warlords boys, get rid of these Spider Riders, get rid of the supporting units. And once that's done, my opponent is going to be in a bit of a pickle because he just doesn't have the tools really at that point to shut me down. Now, he does summon some Spider Hatchlings. Once again, they're proving very useful at denying me that pressure I wanted. And you can see they're actually doing some damage to the Glady, who's under 1,000 HP. She's basically hit her healing cap. And I actually forgot about my infantry at this point, as well as the Wild Riders, who are over here wiping out the Goblin Archers up to 429 kills, just having a ludicrous time of it. But at this point, I do net down the Arachnarch Queen, just trying to extricate my Glady. My poor Spellslinger over here is forced off as well. She's just waddling off there on her pigeon, and yeah, she's in full rout. So it's tough stuff, guys. Definitely my opponent still has a lot of troops on the field, still has a lot of threatening units. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start diving in the Hawk Riders, trying to get us around the Spider. The Hawk Riders are the only unit that can really do much to the Arachnarch Spider in my army, because I didn't go with a kite build with Way Watchers or something like that. So I don't have the tools to deal with an Arachnarch. And at least not in a just shoot it down sort of way that what else would normally do. So we're going to dive in with the Hawk Riders, who are going to do some okay work. She's only got 41 melee defense, so as long as we're able to get some rear charges or come in from the flank or whatever, we'll get some good value. We're able to once again get another Earthblood, another juicy heal, dive in on the Warlords boys, and once again force a rout. So my opponent's army just falling apart on the peripheries. We're making sure these units can't come back into the fight, being a bit cruel there, just making sure these Gobos can't get into things. Another unit of Gobos reveals itself. At this point, Glady's hit her healing cap at 1600 HP. So the Hawk Squad and the Glady are going to hit these poor guys, and they are once again going to force a full rout. And these guys are just buckling under that pressure. And balance of power at this point very decisively in my favor. We're just bogging down the Spiderlings and the Arachnarch Queen at this point. War Boss in full retreat. We're able to force off these Night Goblins. They're going to completely shatter. And at this point, my opponent's army is just this little pocket here, and it's a bit of a fast forward here. I sent the Spellslinger to chase the Lord there because I basically had no winds of magic. Hawk Riders come in once again. We can see they do okay damage to the Arachnarch. They don't do as much as you'd like, to be quite frank, but they do something. They do okay. With all the infantry blobbed up there, it's hard for them to really get into the fight that easily. But you can see the Arachnarch here is going to buckle, surrounded by a wave of wings and feathers. The vile beast finally does fall. So we're able to force the Arachnarch Queen off there and get a win. Now, great games from my opponent, Sneaky Brit. I had a lot of fun. I really liked his Goblin build, the Vanguard stuff. The Vanguard play is always a lot of fun. And I had a lot of fun with my build as well, and I hope you enjoyed the game too. I tried to go without kiting. I do know you guys are probably sick and tired of seeing Hawk Riders, but they're so much fun. And honestly, if you're willing to micro, if you're willing to utilize them correctly, they are such a valuable unit. There's no way you can understate understate the power. They're just so good. You can't overstate how useful they can be. They're just very, very strong. You saw now, certainly the Wild Riders, you're racking up 430 kills. That is crazy, and obviously that is huge. But you gotta keep in mind, a lot of that was wiping out peripheral units. They were kind of doing mop-up duty, which is important. But a lot of those game-changing fights where we were able to snipe out individual critical targets, able to get those crucial rear charges that would be difficult to score otherwise, or getting that combined isolation. Wild Riders, they're mobile, but they're not that mobile. They can't fly, terrain interferes, you can block them with units, they can be body blocked. That is one of those nice things about Hawk Riders, you can just be wherever you need to be. And a lot of those situations where we broke critical units, where we broke off Forest Goblin Spider Riders, which could have been a threat in the long run, where we managed to break nasty Skulkers, force them to rout, force the Boar Boy Big Guns to rout, and then in the end, even dealing with the Ragnarok Queen, who was a huge threat. Hawk Riders basically did that with the Glady, and so definitely some valuable stuff. The Glady there, I think she only got one breath attack out after that whole game. Definitely did some valuable work. Also, I hope this shows you guys you can win as Wood Elves without kiting full on. Now, I understand kiting is still probably the optimal thing to do. It's still probably the safer thing to do, but you can get away without it. There's also the Waystalker proved surprisingly good. In a situation where you need to be sniping heroes, he's not bad. The main problem with the Waystalker is that he's terrible against units. Now, he can pierce, so potentially if you hit a unit, you can kill like 3, 4, 5 models even. I think you could kill a lot of troops. But he's really good he's really optimal for sniping these sort of cheap, low HP Night Goblin Shamans. Even the War Boss, if he's able to get around his shield, he'll do a lot of work. So, honestly, this guy paid for himself just forcing out those 2 Night Goblin Shamans. Who knows? Itchy Nuisance or 2 at the end there, when things were really getting hairy, that could have been the difference between a win and a loss. And, yeah. For my opponent, I think a pretty cool build. Definitely a nice take on things with the Goblin Army. I think the Night Goblin Shaman, the doubling up, while it might seem cool on paper, I think it turned out not to be as useful as I think my opponent hoped. Would have perhaps been better off bringing something else. I'm not entirely sure what. For 500 gold, you could have put more chevrons on your Night Goblins, though. Try to keep them in the fight a little longer. One of the big problems is simply the fact that leadership is very bad. So obviously, Goblin builds, they're a bit risky. Your leadership is trash, so what can you do? Definitely one of the hard carries there was the Ragnarok Queen, who got huge value. But to be quite honest, I'm not sure she's great against Wood Elves, because in general, it was great, or she was very useful in this matchup, where I went intentionally trying to fight my opponent. But in situations where your opponent might bring a lot of Weight Watchers or those sorts of units, I feel like the Ragnarok Queen might not be as good. It's just my 2 cents on the matter. But regardless, well played to my opponent. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining. I promise not to keep spamming guys with Hawk Riders in the future, but hey, I love this matchup or this match, and I had a lot of fun and wanted to share it. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any comments, criticism, questions, anything of that sort, be sure to share, and I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.